This is Matthew Keenan with you, where today all the action kicks off in Montélimar. Chris Froome now leads Bauke Mollema, who's moved up to second position. It's a 1 minute and 47 second gap between those two. It's then Adam Yates with Nairo Quintana at almost 3 minutes behind. Yesterday, no formal podium presentation as we normally see. There was a minute's silence paying tribute to the victims of the attack in Nice. Stage 14, and as you can see from the map, it is virtually directly north, starting in Montélimar, making its way through to the Parc d'Oiseaux. A blockhead wind throughout the stage, and the last of our stages of more than 200 kilometres. 208 kilometres. In fact, the second last. There's another one to come as we go to Switzerland. Clear blue skies getting the race underway. 5 stages this year of more than 200 kilometres. And there was a minute's silence once again at the start of the stage today with all the riders together. And Christian Prudhomme wearing the black armband as he did yesterday. It was a sombre mood on the Tour de France yesterday. It was a strange atmosphere, in fact, and for good reason, as the Tour did what it could to pay its respects to those that lost their lives and their families, of course, in Nice. This is the situation of the race. Breakaway group of 4 riders out to an advantage of 4 minutes and 46 seconds. It's quite a strong group. At the back of the group, this is Jeremy Waugh from the FDJ team. Just in front of him is Cesare Benedetti from Bora Argon 18. In the green colours from Cannondale Drapac, it's Alex Howes. And the most experienced in the group, number 74 from IM Cycling, the Swiss rider, Martin Alminger. Martin Alminger at the back of the group is the best placed in the overall standings. 1 hour, 31 minutes and 38 seconds behind Chris Froome. So the responsibility to contain this breakaway won't be falling to Sky and the yellow jersey holder of Froome. It will be for the teams of the sprinters, those that think that this is their chance to get the win. Arguably, the rider is Andre Greipel, and it's his birthday today. 34 years of age, so happy birthday to Andre Greipel. Romans-sur-Isère, the small town that which is the home of Philippe Saint-André, who's the former captain of the French rugby team. He was the captain of the French rugby team from 2011 through to 2015. The Jacquemart Tower that we're now getting a chance to take a look at. The tower overlooking the town since 1429. It stands at some 37 metres tall. Now that jack of the clocks that you can see on there, there's still around about 50 of these remaining in France, but this is the biggest one. It stands at 2.6 metres tall. It's also the oldest. It's been a slow start to the stage because of the headwind and, of course, the accumulated fatigue of the battle that they've had over the past few days with vicious crosswinds, which have made the racing very dangerous. So although the headwind makes for a long stage, I'm sure there's a fair few riders that are quite relieved about the headwind, as the headwind makes the racing conditions safer. Much safer than a tailwind or a crosswind, particularly the crosswind. Another chance to take a look at this tower with the jack of the clocks, which stands alongside the big bell. The tower dates back to 1429, but the jack of the clocks is a lot younger than that. It's only a few hundred years old. None of the riders in this breakaway group of 4 have been stage winners at the Tour de France in the past, and they know that their odds of upsetting the sprinters today are slim, but they were never going to win the stage if they just stayed back in the peloton. So this is their best chance. Benedetti at the back of the group, we saw him in the breakaway on stage 2. That was the breakaway that almost made it, when we were saying exactly what I just said. They don't have much of a chance. 33.15 kilometres the average speed so far on the stage. Benedetti in the black colours from Bora Argon 18. He was in the break with Jesper Sturven when we saw Jesper attack his breakaway companions and get caught with just 450 metres to go. It was Peter Sagan who went on to win the stage ahead of Julien Alaphilippe. And it's the three teams of the big sprinters who are doing the chasing at this point. Dimension Data, edX Quickstep and Lotto Soudal. You can then see the full contingent of the men in black, the Sky Squad, looking after the yellow jersey of Chris Froome. They're not doing any chasing. They're saving as many of their resources as possible as we're back into the mountains tomorrow with a big day of climbing on the agenda for stage 15.
For me, he already is the revelation of this year's Tour de France. Right up there at the moment at 2:45. Now breathing down his neck. Quintana 14 seconds behind him. Verde, another 2 seconds behind that Van Garderen. Then less than a minute back to Bardet, Richie Porte. So many big name riders, experienced riders, more mature at Grand Tour level, right behind him. If he was to hang on to his place in the GC, or even move up onto the podium, it would be an incredible performance. If he was to drop and finish 9th or 10th, I would still say he's had an incredible debut riding for GC. It's not his first tour, but his first go at trying to ride GC and taking it day by day. Whatever happens, he's had a fantastic tour.
Been a brilliant ride by Adam Yates, but there's plenty still to come. This is Alex Howes at the front of the race, a breakaway group of 4, almost at the top of the climb. The Côte de Fort Echaud, 1 point up for grabs in the race for the King of the Mountains jersey. It's just a Category 4 climb. It's not really a contest. Alex Howes continues to set the tempo. Jeremy Waugh is not going to challenge, and it will be Alex Howes who gets 1 point added to his name in the race for the polka dot jersey.
Well, something there for Cannondale Drapac.
And he's maintained the momentum over the top. He didn't kick the clutch in, flicked the elbow as soon as he got the point. He made the statement of continuing with the pressure right at the front. This is the Chateau of Montchenu, which is a medieval chateau dating back to the 12th century and is now privately owned. And you can see the old fortress wall around the outside of it. A lot of it has been dismantled over the centuries, but the chateau itself, standing right in the middle, still looks as if it is in pristine condition. It's probably about time to get the cover off the pool and go for a swim. 26 degrees this afternoon. Lars back at the front, followed by Natnil Bidhan. Next is Peter Vakoc. And for Team Sky, this is an ideal situation. This is a day for them almost to treat it as a recovery stage up until that last 30 or 40 kilometres where things start to intensify.
Yes, a bit of active recovery, if you can call it that, for 208.5 kilometres. I spoke about the sprinter with the best and the most well-drilled team having the best chance. Now, it's not just about the sprinters and their teams. All of the GC riders we've been speaking about over the last few minutes, them and all their teams are going to be at the front because everybody will know the wind conditions here at the finish. That final 3 kilometres, the 3 kilometre rule, we've spoken about that a number of times. If you crash or puncture, you get the time of the group you're in. But if the race just splits, you lose that time. In 3 kilometres, you may not lose much. They don't want to lose any seconds. We just spoke about how close they are from 4th through 8th at the moment. Nobody wants to lose 5 or 6 seconds. So it's going to be chaos as they turn towards the finish.
The peloton now 1 kilometre away from going over the top of this Category 4 climb. Vasily Katienka is the man at the back in the black colours of Team Sky. And they're about to start the next climb. Once they get out of this town, they're on to the next climb, which again, it's a Category 4 climb. And it's relatively short at just 2.1 kilometres. And only 1 point up for grabs in the race for the King of the Mountains jersey here. Big crowds on the side of the road once again. Martin Elminger with the bidden up, indicating he wants the team car to come up alongside him. Just drops that down for one of the spectators on the side of the road. The locals have come out in force. And all the riders have made it pretty clear after what we saw on Mont Ventoux, when a few spectators went overboard, that they love the spectators on the side of the road. And 99% of them do the right thing. They applaud, they clap everybody that comes through. And they don't want to see that change. It's just that 1% that oversteps the line every now and then. We can't forget that the stage of Mont Ventoux was also on Bastille Day, big festivities, and just maybe a few people might have indulged in the local produce of the crushed grapes that have been fermented for a little bit too long. Jeremy Waugh from FDJ stretches the legs at the front. This is Benedetti from Bora Argonne 18. The most experienced rider from this breakaway group, a former winner of the Tour Down Under. And at the back in the green colours from the Cannondale Dropout, Alex Howes. He has been with the Slipstream organisation all through its various sponsors since it started, which was way back in 2007. Rode well on home soil last year, Alex Howes, at the World Championships, finished in 12th position in the race that was won by Peter Sagan. He's had one crash already. You can still see the damage on his left arm, and he's shown his resilience by getting into the breakaway today.
Good job getting into the break. Probably not the ideal day for a breakaway, especially 4 men against the bunch on what looks to be the final chance reaches Paris on Sunday week. These riders will know they stand very little chance of making it to the finish and fighting it out for the win. But you don't know if you don't go. The Swiss rider in second position here, former winner of Tour Down Under, he's always prepared to have a go. Having a go back in the peloton now is Etixx Quickstep. And look at that single file line. Probably more a case of just coming down those winding roads after the KOM rather than a big increase in the pace.
And they're about to approach that small town that we've just seen the breakaway go through. It's going to be safer if it's strung out in single file. The impact of a fall is more significant because they are going faster, but it is safer.
And you see the riders also more prepared to just single out and follow the wheels because they know there's little to no danger of coming into a crosswind once they get out of that village, because the race goes in one direction, due north all day, and that Mistral wind has swung to the north since yesterday. That's why we saw the riders getting hit in the side along the time trial course at the Gorge d'Ardèche. So not as much stress in the bunch. You see the flags flying there, not completely in the face at the moment. Also looks fairly protected compared to the wind out on the rest of the course.
The past 3 stages, the flags have had the threads torn out of the end of them. It's been going that violently. Today, it is still relatively windy. We'd call it a windy day if we hadn't had the past 3 days. It's just after what there's been, this is reasonably easy.
I'd almost say the past 14 days, Matt. I think this has been the windiest tour I've ever seen. Normally we get 2 or 3 days of high winds that split the peloton. We've seen it so often in this Tour de France, from up in Normandy at the start along the coastline there, and then particularly over the last 3 days. That Mistral wind has thrown a big spanner in the works for many riders and given them a lot harder ride too. So expect to see some riders really start to struggle in the last week because they've been expending a lot of energy on stages where they normally could just sit the wheels and ride the stage out. So it's made it a tougher tour.
This is Benedetti at the front for Bora Argonne 18. He's picked up a few points throughout the race this year in the battle for the King of the Mountains jersey, but he's no challenge to Thomas de Gent. Earlier this season, he managed to win the King of the Mountains classification at Tirreno Adriatico. A big tour that starts the season, really kicks off the season in Italy in March. Jeremy Waugh, he was just backed off this group ever so slightly, and Martin Alminger was making sure that he was keeping an eye on him. He's been a stage winner, Jeremy Waugh, in Paris-Nice, which is also organised by the organisers of the Tour de France. And it always finishes, well, not always finishes, but generally has a stage finish at some point on the Promenade d'Anglais, where we saw that a tragedy on Bastille Day, the terrorist attack in a truck. So a lot of the riders, it felt very close to home for them, particularly the English-speaking riders. Many of them, when they moved to Europe, lived in Nice or nearby in Monaco. Looks like Benedetti is going to collect the 1 point on offer this time over the top of this Category 4 climb. No challenge from Martin Alminger, the most experienced man in the group. He just lets the Italian drift forward and take the point, because Martin Alminger wants to keep this group organised. Well, this that we're looking at now by Chevelle, the ideal palace of Chevelle, this was built by a postman, and it took him 33 years to build it. He started by just doing a small little waterfall, and then he just continued to build. He grabbed oyster shells, little rocks from all around the area that he collected throughout his day. There's snail shells in there as well. It took him 30 years to build this, and he wanted to be buried in it, but the local municipality wouldn't allow it. They said, well, you have to be buried in the local cemetery. So then he spent another 8 years building himself his own tomb in a local cemetery. This was in the latter part of the 1800s. He started building this, which he first called a source of life, back in 1879, and he continued to work on it for 33 years. It was his ideal palace. The dream place.
And the building materials, he didn't go down to Bunnings or a hardware store or the building supplies to get what he used. Shells, snails, oysters and stones.
All collected from the local area, the stones and so on anyway.
Yes, Matt, you can see the breakaway just in that little staggered formation, offset to the right of the rider in front, just catching the ideal slipstream. So this will be a little sectional, just push the peloton a little bit from left to right. But then it quickly changes direction again and will generally stay as a headwind until they get up to about the last 3 kilometres. Then it's all crosswind to the finish line.
And I think through that section in the peloton, there's a truce at this point. They know what is still to come. There's a big week of climbing through the mountains before they reach Paris. And Lars Bak, one of the captains of the peloton, leading the charge for Lotto Soudal. It was such a popular stage win for Lars Bak when he collected a victory at the Giro d'Italia 3 years ago. Clipped off the front, managed to win on his own. Not often he gets the chance to have the freedom to target a victory. He's part of the contingent of riders from Lotto Soudal who's extended his contract to coincide with Andre Greipel. Still Jeremy Waugh on the front. We're in number 128. His best result in the stage of the Tour de France was a 3rd place finish. That was back in 2011 into Lourdes. Thor Hushoff went out, the stage winner, and that time around it was on stage 13. There's Julien Alaphilippe, number 182 at the back of the peloton for edX Quickstep. He won't have to do much work at the back end of today's stage, surely, for Marcel Kittel, after the fall that he had yesterday.
And Julien Alaphilippe, not really one of the lead-out squad within the edX Quickstep team. Looking more for Fabio Sabatini, Ilio Chiesa, to help Marcel Kittel into position and lead the sprint out.
With Bora Argon 18, they're in the breakaway today, but also just spotted at the back, number 135, Sam Bennett, who was in that nasty fall on stage 1 with Michael Morkov as well, who's since abandoned the race and was the first rider to head home, but he bravely fought on for almost the entire first week. I wonder if Sam Bennett today, if his legs are in a position, if his body's in a position for him to have a full-throttled attempt at the sprint finish. I hope so. He deserves to have his chance.
I hope so for him too, because after all the suffering that he's gone through to get to this point after crashing on stage 1, it'll be a nice reward for him to get a good result, or at least just for his own confidence and to make it worth all that suffering, at least get up there and be able to have a go full throttle, even if it's not a win or a top 3, just to be amongst it again.
Andre Greipel, the German national champion, one of the big favourites for the stage. The situation with Sam Bennett reminds me of Michael Matthews last year. He crashed on stage 3 and he kept plucking away, hoping that he'd recuperate and be in a position to challenge for a stage victory. He didn't quite get there, but I'm sure that that whole experience has served him really well and made him appreciate even more so the stage win this year.
it's done that. And Michael Matthews has said last year, riding through the rest of the tour after stage 3 with 4 broken ribs, the amount of suffering that he did on that tour, he said it's taught me how hard I can actually push myself physically and mentally. So anything I come up against from now on, I've got that experience that helps me. It helps me mentally to know that I can push through something like that.
Making their way through the town of Benaron. And they are still 5 kilometres away from the intermediate sprint.
Turn, but just now flicks out and lets Jeremy Rouvy go through. But Elmiger, no, he flicked out and then increased the pace. Here goes Benedetti from the back.
Benedetti opens up, and that does catch Elminger by surprise. So he was closing the gate, Elminger, so as they could only go on one side. That was so as nobody could do what Benedetti did and surprise him as the Italian collects.
Not only surprised them from the back, but had the horsepower to keep opening the gap after he went. Elminger saw it pretty quickly and reacted. Did not make up 1 metre on Cesare Benedetti. Good turn of speed from the Italian. You see him short, sort of stocky build. If you're going to pick a sprinter out of the 4, he's the one you'd say is man most likely. Now, the peloton are now coming to the 1 kilometre to go banner for this sprint. Not a lot of interest just yet back in the peloton as Ethics Quickstep now on the left-hand side in the blue. They look like they're bringing Marcel Kittel up. And he wants to take some points, but on his wheel in green, Peter Sagan. Behind him, Mark Cavendish. Talking of Cavendish, that's not the sign of a man who's going to pull out of the Tour de France to prepare for the Rio Olympics on the track. He's still going for green jersey points. Brian Coquard is behind Cavendish.
The lead-out train for Marcel Kittel. As Peter Sagan is having a conversation with Mark Cavendish, he's looking very comfortable. Notably, Andre Greipel is missing. He is putting all his eggs in the stage win basket. Well, the others, they're just stepping out of the way and waiting for the sprint to come.
One Lotto Soudal policeman, if you like, on the back of this group, but 4 Ethics Quickstep riders lined up for Marcel Kittel, so a bit of a general repetition, I guess you could say, for the final sprint.
And this is Lars Bak just checking across in the red colours, having a look at the situation. 300 metres remaining. Ethics Quickstep, they start to wind things up. It's Kittel who sits in 3rd spot. And now Peter Sagan is the first to go. Marcel Kittel has been caught slightly on the hop. 150 to go. Sagan trying to minimise the energy expenditure while still getting the points. And he collects 5th place on the intermediate sprint, followed by Kittel, then Cavendish. Next in line was Coquard. So Mark Cavendish, although he was in there and amongst it, he didn't spend any energy.
Mark Cavendish not even getting out of the saddle to take part in the sprint, just rolling in for a few points. Marcel Kittel not prepared to go from a long way out, and that provided Sagan with the opportunity to get the jump up the inside and effectively box Marcel Kittel in a little bit. He knew then it's probably a little bit late, or not too late, but if I'm going to pass him, it's going to require maximum effort, which he's not prepared to do with a stage win on the line. That's what's really important. And I don't think any of those guys really believe they can take green back off Peter Sagan, but sort of just keeping themselves in contention, almost battling for second, just in case something happens to Peter Sagan that means he cannot finish the Tour de France. Then it's an open competition between the rest because Peter Sagan, he's increased his lead for the green jersey. Already had 90 points over Mark Cavendish. It's extended that to at least 92 now.
Well, they've made the most of this roundabout. It's like a natural theatre to be able to look down upon the peloton. This is Vicioso at the back for the Katusha team. Their team leader, Joaquim Rodriguez, he lost ground yesterday, which is no surprise. He was the worst performed of the riders battling for a top 10 finish.
And I still thought that for Joaquim Rodriguez's capabilities in the time trial, he actually did okay. He gave 4:46. That's a lot, but I've seen him do worse in the same situation in past Grand Tours. A very difficult time trial, but if you're going to be a contender for the overall, you've got to keep those sort of losses down to around 2 minutes, I would say, at the most. And I don't believe Joaquin Rodriguez can get anywhere near the podium in this Tour de France, but possibly a top 10. And once we get into the mountains, he's in his territory.
All the way past the Mont Ventoux, right towards the Bouches du Rhône before it actually gets piled out into the Mediterranean. That, by the way, just down there is the Yons Dam, Le Barrage de Yons. It's 100 meters long, and it's entirely located in the municipality of Veniervaux. And it is in fact built as a controlling dam for the levels of the Rhône. It was built in 1934. The main purpose is to direct the flow of water and control the levels into the Miribel Dam. The main field now crossing over and into the Département of Verlaine. 25 kilometers to go. There you can just see the dam over to the right hand side there. Quite an interesting dam, and it actually is also used to control the flow into the canal, which is then diverted into a hydroelectric plant not too far away from here. The EDF, Électricité de France, produces an awful large percentage of France's electricity from hydroelectric power. The Miribel Canal, which was founded in 1832, because of the fact that the Rhône River on occasions had actually created a certain amount of flooding, and that's why they decided to build this dam, as they did many other dams down throughout the length of the Rhône, just to control the level and control the flow. The dam itself, the canal itself, was created towards the end of the 1800s. Back with the leaders now, 16 seconds, and that's not much more than about 250 meters. You can see now their speed. They have lifted up the speed in the leading group of 4 riders to about 54 kilometers now. The main field, well, 280 meters is their advantage, while the peloton is hovering at just about the same speed, waiting for the moment to pull it all back together. It's interesting that it's Mark Cavendish's team who have come to the front, and they're already taking the risk. Again, you have to be very, very careful not to lay too much energy out too early on. Sitting over to the right-hand side of Cavendish, you had all the Lotto riders. They will be starting to look after their man, and that, of course, is Andre Greipel. And Andre Greipel, I spoke to his team before the start of this race, and they said, well, we do have our lead-out team well sorted out when it comes down to the running towards the finish. And one of the integral parts of the lead-out for Team Lotto is Greg Henderson. As you get a chance to see what a beautiful region this is region number 01. And every region in France, every department in France, every 101 of them has its own little number. And this one, of course, is the first number on the list, 101. Number 01, sorry.
Well, we're getting into the wetlands of the region now, which makes this a protected area for the fauna and the flora, indeed, of the region. As I say, we've not finished here before. There's the flag showing you the strength of the wind. These poor boys are now down to 19 seconds, and Elminger shakes his head because I think he saw them.
Well, he knows now, Phil, that the writing is very much on the wall there, but we're getting to the fairly critical part of this race, and we're at 23 kilometers to go. In 13 kilometers to go, at 10 kilometers from the finish, that's when really the race, I think, will start to wind itself up, and we'll start to see which of the teams of the sprinters want to take control, because inside of the last 10 kilometers there are only 2 corners, a 90-degree to the left and a 90-degree to the right, so it really is a perfect sprinter's day today.
And they're coming right up behind them now, 21 seconds and holding. They're going to have led this race for about 163 kilometers, a little bit more than 100 miles ahead of the field today, but it's just about over now. And we're twisting and turning, so the wind is going from head to cross at a fairly regular fashion just at this moment in time.
Well, as you can see, it's swinging around a lot because we're zigzagging now up towards the finishing town of Villars-les-Dombes. And currently, they're actually, because of the way the race is twisting and turning, they're picking up rather nasty headwind, as you can see there from the Portuguese flag over to the left-hand side.
They're just showing off because they beat France in the European Football Championships a week ago. The peloton now are going to start changing the whole attitude to the racing today.
Well, just the information that we were picking up, Phil, from all of the teams of the sprinters at the start, they all realise how important it is to have a solid lead-out train down towards the end. You've got team dimension data over on the right-hand side. They're all looking after Mark Cavendish, but one of the best lead-out squads over the last few years has been Team Lotto, and they will be looking for a 5-man lead-out with Marcel Seeberg to lead out early on, Deboucher, Roland, and Greg Henderson, the last man to lead out Greipel.
Almost over for the leaders, Jens Voigt, but the wind is very hard. Can you explain how it is? Because you've ridden the Tour in conditions like this.
Well, we also had the chance this morning to ride the last kilometers of the circuit. So there's a 90-degree turn a little bit after the 6-kilometer mark. And then that leads for 2.5 kilometers into some really strong crosswind. So it is very, very likely that the peloton is going to split up there. So like Christian van der Velde said before, it's going to get a little hairy to get into that corner in a good position in the first place. But in between 3 kilometers to go and 5.5 kilometers to go, that is such a crucial part of today's stage. Basically, the whole stage is going to be decided in this part in the crosswind. So having a good, strong team and a whole lot of riders together with you, it's definitely going to help you. And there I see the advantage for people like Kittel having the strong and experienced team for this behind them.
Wow, well, I'm excited about that, and I must be honest, it looks about 15 kilometres to that little change of direction at the moment, and they're still doing the best not to catch these 4 riders as they continue to lead. But it'll be that left-hand turn. We're looking at the diagram on our running books at the moment. It's a long, straight road, very acute angle. It's going to be a tough crosswind there.
Well, the complicated thing is, yes, it's just about exactly on 6 kilometres to go to the finish. There's that 90-degree turn to the left. But not only the sprinters will be trying to get well positioned there, Phil, the overall contenders will be trying to stay at the front of the pack. Well, okay, just 10 seconds is the gap of the 4 leaders. I mean, in the main field there, you can almost put your hand out and put it on the back of the 4-man breakaway. I'm a little surprised, though, to see, just sitting at the back here, number 164, because he's one of the guys I was talking about as being an integral part of the lead-out for Andre Greipel. That was Jens Deboucher. Maybe he's going to scramble up to the front in a short while and try to get himself in a position for that lead-out, but they can still always count on the big Marcel Seeberg. He's 1.98 tall. He's the tallest man in the Tour de France, and that, in old money, is 6'6". 21 kilometers, and that's going to take these guys now, when you factor in the weather and the wind conditions, it's going to take them about 25 to 26 minutes to get to the line. You can see the average speeds between the main field and the peloton. They're only separated by around about 150 meters, but they've definitely turned it off in the peloton. Just having a look over to the right hand side, you can see the red jerseys. Left hand side is the white and black jerseys of Dimension Data. Here's one of the little turns, but it's not really critical until they get to that left-hand bend at 6 kilometers to go. And then we will see a massive acceleration in the main field, coming from the sprinters teams, but also coming from BMC and Van Garderen and Port Duo, from Team Sky, looking Movistar, looking after Nairo Quintana, because if they really put the hammer down at that point, we could see a similar situation to the situation that occurred on the road into Montpellier a couple of days ago, where even the leaders get caught out and lose some time.
But now it's eyes down for the sprint kings of the Tour de France. The players or the teammates now setting the pace. There's the right-hand sweeper. Katusha really have confidence now in Alexander Kristoff. They've got 4 riders up there, and Bosenhagen is up there as well for Dimension Data for Cavendish.
Yeah, but not far away. There's the 3 kilometers to go, Bennett. No more corners. It's pretty much a straight run into the finish line now, and Team Katusha are taking control of the peloton over on the right-hand side. But just look behind them, a little bit further back, the black and blue jerseys. They're all communicating Ethics Quickstep. They're waiting to get their lead-out train organised, but waiting till the final few kilometres.
Mark Cavendish is in there as well, near Bosenhagen, his teammate in a different coloured jersey, is champion of Norway. The black jerseys, they're looking to try and take Brian Cockar on the left of our picture. There's a lot of movement now. Riders are off the road here. Well, they've got back
That's
on it,
Sagan.
but look at all the places. I wasn't sure whether it was or not.
It was because he's wearing the green jersey and the grey shorts. He's gone to the fashion police this afternoon. Well,
it looks like he's still there to me, Paul.
There you go. I'll agree with you on this one.
Well, thank you.
But it looked so much like him because of the grey shorts, but certainly it's very difficult to catch out Mr. Sagan.
Well, I would have thought he'd put him on the grass, he'd come off ahead of the race. He's that good riding a bike. But the wind is hurting all of the riders here. Just being tailed off the back is Wilco Kelderman. He'll lose time. He was amongst the overall boys for a top 10 finish in Paris. A lot of concern there now. Ethics getting control of the race, though, for Marcel Kittel.
Well, this is one, I would think, probably the best lead-out train. We talked about them a couple of days ago, how well organised they were. Once they get up to about 3 kilometres to go, we'll start to see the real serious line-out, as we're now inside of 1.7 kilometres. It won't be very long now before we start to see coming to the front Tony Martin. There he is in second position, Phil, just waiting for the moment to wind it up. He knows exactly what he wants to do. And once Tony Martin has done his long term, then they'll throw it over to Maximiliano Ricchesi, who in person is a very good sprinter in his own right. And the last man, hopefully, if everything works out well for Ethics Quickstep, will be Fabio Sabatini to do the final lead out. But now Lotto takes control on the left.
And they've washed away Kittel, who's on the last blue rider on the right there, and he's lost a lot of space as they come to 1 kilometre.
Well, that was pretty aggressive as they came up to the line. There was a few changes of direction. I think it was a fairly regular sprint, though, but Marcel Kittel put his hand up to complain about the movement from Mark Cavendish. I think that was just general moving in the main field, but obviously, Phil, as we look at that, these are all the top men. That's Cavendish there, Kittel with his hand up, and Peter Sagan throws for the line. And in the other white jersey, nice. John Degenkolb. Nice to see him back.
How nice was that?
Hey, nice one. Nice one. Again.
Well, just take a look at this here. That's Kittel going for the line. Cavendish breaks over him. Now, when the camera caught, Cavendish moved, but there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, difficult to say. Obviously, Marcel Kittel not happy with that. Cavendish moves slightly to the middle, then back over to the right-hand side, and he's got 4 fingers up there for 4 victories. But really nice to see getting up there John Degenkolb. Just a quick look there. I think John Degenkolb got up there in 4th or 5th position, and it's nice to see him back. When you know the story behind his performance, being knocked off, almost losing a finger, almost losing his life in a very nasty accident at a training camp in the southern part of Spain in the early part of the year. A chance there to look at the Parc des Oiseaux. It's a beautiful park. As I said, it's almost 400 hectares of bird watching paradise, and 400 hectares corresponds to around about 1,000 acres. And that big tower you can see in the middle is, of course, one of the watch towers to get a good chance to see 1 or 2 of the rare species of birds that are down here too. So we've got to wait for a few moments to have another look at the finishing line here. But look, as they come around the corner, Cavendish right in the middle there, looking for the win. It's Degenkolb in the white jersey trying to get there, and it's so great to see him back. Sagan comes right up through the middle, and I'm just, well, second, third and fourth, you'll have to go to the photo. Let's have a look here from the side. Cavendish gets up there. On the far side, Christoph second, third, hazard a guess, while Kittel has to settle for 5th. There was certainly a little bit of movement. I think it was involuntary as we look at this one more time, but you see just going there, slipping backwards. A lot of movement in a sprint like this, and it's all under the control there of Ethics at this point. Cavendish moving up into 2nd place. Degenkolb is nicely there in 3rd. Moving into 4th place is Christoph. Cavendish comes up there, and it looked really as if Kittel was trying to get himself back into the slipstream of Cavendish. He almost lost control of the bike. Oh, the lunge for the line. I would think just over on the left-hand side, that was Alexander Christoph, got himself 2nd place, but it was all really very much in the lunge for the line. Hovering around in the middle there as well, finishing inside of the top 10, the Frenchman, Brian Coquart. Well, wonder what the referees will say about that one, but for Cavendish, yes, number 4, but maybe more importantly, number 30. Well, he seems to think there's Dougie Ryder, who actually came into our commentary position just a little bit earlier on and said, well, this is it. This is what it's all about.
Cavendish was going almost 2-1 of Marcel Kittel as he went by him. The big German sprinter was already done. That was a protest in frustration as much as it was anything else. Alexander Kristoff in second position. The photo for third between Peter Sagan and John Degenkolb. And it was Sagan that got third. Degenkolb fourth, Kittel fifth. Greipel, Coquart, Chimolay, Laporte, Semi Dumoulin. A good sprint into 10th. The race journeys into the Jura. There's barely a flat stretch of road to provide provide to tired legs, and while Chris Froome has a commanding lead, there are no guarantees on terrain like this. Hello and welcome to stage 15 of the Tour de France. The only certainty today is that there'll be plenty of action. Starting in Bourg-en-Bresse, making its way through to Toulouse, it's 160 kilometres. There are 6 categorised climbs on the stage, but there's 10 climbs in total. They get a few bonus ones. And it includes the outside categorisation climb of the Grand Colombier. They descend down to the finish line and then back up the Grand Colombier again, but not all the way to the top, before descending through to the finish itself. Welcome to stage 15 of the Tour de France. Matthew Keaton with you, joined by a man who's won 12 stages in the race, 3 green jerseys. Robbie McEwen, we're into the mountains. We're not talking about the green jersey today. Today, it's all about yellow.
It's all about the fight for yellow. It's all about the big GC contenders and the climbers. But don't speak too soon, Matthew, on saying we're not going to talk about the green jersey, because the man wearing it, Peter Sagan, he's full of surprises, and I wouldn't be overly surprised if he pops himself into a break early on in this stage. But it's not realistically a stage he's going to win. But never say never with Peter Sagan.
He may well try and get in the breakaway, because there's only 3 mountains to get over before the intermediate sprint, and he's had his margin narrowed. It's now down to just a 62-point advantage over Mark Cavendish, which actually can be wiped away pretty quickly.
Inside one intermediate sprint and one finish could effectively put Cavendish in green. I don't expect it.
Inside the last 30 seconds before they roll away, 10 minutes neutral, then the flag will come in, and then the racing will really be on. Chance to look down upon this beautiful monastery, the Church of Saint Nicolas. Bourg-en-Bresse hosting a stage start, and it's hosted plenty of finishes of stages in the Tour de France before, often ones that have proved to be decisive. The last 10 seconds. And there is the green jersey, Peter Sagan, alongside Chris Froome, the overall race leader. They roll away. This moment, they all look relatively relaxed, but Nairo Quintana sitting towards the front. Surely the pressure is building internally for Nairo Quintana. Everybody has been expecting the attacks to come from the great Colombian climber, but he's yet to deliver any major punch. He hasn't really landed anything on the chin of Chris Froome.
Not yet, but at this point in the race last year, he also hadn't landed anything on the chin of Chris Froome. It all happened in that last couple of days. We're still a week away from Paris, but now is when it's got to start happening, because Nairo Quintana, he knows last year, he probably started risking it a little bit too late, making those big attacks and finally taking time. Had he started a little bit earlier, he may have been able to crack Chris Froome. But I wonder if his confidence is up to it, because he tried on the Mont Ventoux and he got dropped.
He said he made a mistake and he went too soon. Thomas de Gendt in the King of the Mountains jersey. He must go in the breakaway today. He must.
And he's starting on the front row because he's wearing that jersey. And even if he was second in that competition, I'm sure he'd be starting on the front row, or at least right tucked in behind it, ready to go again. And he knows that if he can get in the break today and Rafael Maker doesn't, he could effectively wrap up the King of the Mountains jersey on today's stage. There are so many climbs on offer. But he says, you know what? I want to have a man-against-man battle with Maker. I'm happy if he tries to go up the road, because I'll go too. I'd like to race for it.
What's happening here with Chris Froome? He's just gone a little bit further forward. Might be trying to get to the left-hand side of the road to adjust some sort of mechanical problem.
He's on the radio. Seems to be having a bit of computer trouble. Might have to dial a geek.
And hopefully he's got that all sorted out. Here's Gary.
Okay, you might as well do a second bonus route. I'm on now, it's at the Bloberg Strand coast in South Africa. So let's just give this a try. Stupid, that won't connect. I just gotta get off the bike in order to start the ride. Okay, so it's not going to be a fast ride. Back on the bike. See, now I can see that we have a Strava segment on this route. Okay, so if you look at the profile on the screen now at the very bottom, the yellow line going across, you see the orangey red line starting from the final 8 in Africa up until the distance marker, that orange line. We have a Strava segment. So I think I will take a little bit of fuel now. So my left quad is a bit tight from last night. Because those are two hard effort races I did last night. I was a bit late due to a power fault. So the first race last night at Emerald Lake in Canada, I was about 15 minutes late. So when I started my race, everybody else was a good 6.5 kilometers ahead of me. So on an 8 kilometer race, I had no chance of catching them. Which also meant that the follow-up race, I was about 10 minutes late for that. So I started in the second race, which is Cabo de Fermento in Mallorca. I started that about 10 minutes late. And I went from 71st to 54th place. So I was happy with that. It was a full race with no ability to draft or any slipstream. So if I had been able to stop the race at the time, if there had been no power foot and I wasn't waiting for the computer, then I would have been maybe 10 to 15 place. Because I would have been in a fast group and I would have been able to slipstream with people as well. Anyway, in South Africa at the moment, I might do the Sani Pass, which is on the border of South Africa and Lesotho. I might do that again tomorrow. That's about 1,500 metres over 8 kilometres. So it's a very, very tough, very steep climb. I also have a ride tomorrow afternoon as well in Brazil, the Florianopolis Challenge. So at the moment, I am just allowing my legs to spin. To see how things go on. Go check my Garmin now to see if it says I'm overtraining. If it says I'm not overtraining, then it means that I can maybe give this sentence a try. No. We've been training a bit too much. It's gone from peaking, okay, not the old name of the Chinese capital, okay, but peaking. I said I have optimal performance. But now, after my ride about 10 minutes ago, it says that I am now being unproductive. So let's have a quick check. Yeah, I need to slow down a bit. So I will not be going with this strong second. It's going to be beneficial for me overall to keep the steppers in zone 1, zone 2 as much as possible. as we can see, I am not attempting to Strava seconds. And just so I don't get any ideas of suddenly putting on a burst of speed, I've actually gone a bit slower than usual on here. Well, what I can do though, is when the Strava is over, I can check this segment on Strava and see what sort of running times are. And how many people have attempted this, and then see if it's worthwhile for a future effort. It seems nice and sunny outside. Where I am right now, it's cold, dark and wet. Well, it's not cold, it's not warm, it's chilly. Not too shit though. So we have a new climbing challenge coming up on Rouvy next week, which is going to be 4 of the big European mountain climbs. So we've got Bolivia, afterwards, called the Telegraph, and there's another ride as well. I can't remember which one. It's not 1-2. Begins with a C, I think, but I forget the name. But it's like 4 big European climbs. So no doubt over the next few weeks we will have either Sunday morning or Thursday night race meetings on these hills. You notice now my heart rate is now back into zone 1, keeping things nice and relaxed. Nice and easy. Only problem is when we do an easy ride, we take a long time. It's easy to get bored. I don't see any shops about, so you can imagine now, there's a breakdown, there's no shops to fix the bike. We do need to be self-sufficient. Not many cars on the road either. Oh, that noise is just me moving the microphone. Because I'm assuming that if my music plays too much in the background, Google will give me a copyright strike. Okay, depending on the music that's being played, sometimes it'll just stop the stream altogether, or stop the video, or it will say, no, this video cannot be played in such and such a country. So let's just see what happens. What have we got left to go? We're over 4 kilometres left, so about 2.5 miles. this would be a good time trial with on the Tuesday time trials. The Tuesday or Wednesday, no, Wednesday time, yeah. I think I mentioned this to do a Wednesday time trial on here. It says flat, it shows. This is really fast. So I'm trying to decide now whether to move down a set of sprockets on the cassette and lower my cadence, or go up a set and increase my cadence. Because whichever way I go, I will either increase or decrease my heart rate. So what I'll do, when it gets to 21 minutes, I'm going to go up a set of sprockets and increase the cadence for 2 minutes. Okay, and now now the cadence has gone up, keeping roughly the same speed. But as the cadence increases, it means my heart rate increases as well. Yeah, I tend to prefer around 75 RPM cadence. Somebody trying to cross the road. Somebody else come for a run on the right hand side. Okay, that was the ride I was in about half hour ago, 25 minutes ago. Looks like everybody has now finished. What we'll do when we get to this checkpoint is I'm going to go down to my previous position of the cassette for 2 minutes. You see the speed is roughly the same. Cadence has dropped. And the heart rate is going back down again. So we're trying to stay in zone 1 and zone 2 for this ride. Because my Garmin Connect says that I am no longer in peak performance and I am now overreaching or overtraining. So I need to follow with a few easy rides. Listening now to Michael Jackson, Paul McCartney, CCC. remember the video. I think it's the one where it's in like Wild West when they are on the horse and class in the Wild West. And you can call it there's like the one in there. There's all sorts of dancing on the horse and class. Mike's just up to the car. It's a long time. I've seen the video for about 30 years. It's a long time. Okay. I also paying attention to the video. We took the turn round. Because we have the coast on our left hand side now. Everybody's gone to visit the beach. Okay, so time now, when it gets to 26 minutes, I'm going to drop it down one more set of sprockets on the cassette, lower my cadence a bit more, and I'll keep it at that for the rest of the ride. So the benefit of doing that is to build up strength in my legs, without having to climb any mountains. Okay, we're down the M1. And I might do the same again in another minute. Because the way the trainers work is when you are climbing a hill, climbing a mountain, then the trainer just increases resistance to make the loop seem more difficult. So, although you're not actually going uphill, the effort is a lot more difficult. So by having a high gear, low cadence, high torque, it can sort of simulate that same effort. So go down one more. When we get to 50 meters, I will coast. Like that. Okay, so slow ride. Okay, it's 27.5 minutes compared to just under 16 minutes. So yeah, lots of room for improvement. But the idea was just to nice, easy, comfortable ride. So I'm not going to do any more. And so I've got a ride to do tomorrow. So that's it, that's me done.